John Cena, one of the biggest stars in the history of wrestling, made a surprise appearance at the 2024 Money in the Bank pay-per-view and announced that he would be retiring. We learned that not only would Cena be walking away from wrestling at the end of 2025, but the whole procession of 2025 would act kind of as his retirement tour. And of course, we imagined the glorious possibilities. Hasn't quite panned out that way. At the time of recording, John Cena's final ever wrestling match is set to take place on Saturday at a dedicated edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. I'll give my thoughts on that match at kind of like towards the end of this video because they do differ depending on whether or not he actually wins. But by and large, and it's sad to say this, but like most of us, I think my mind is pretty made up on how John Cena's final 12 months in WWE have gone. I'm going to break down everything John Cena did, everything he was booked to do over the course of 2025, and I'm going to explain why it was bad. And that's not me trying to sound clever, like, I'll explain to you why it was bad, because you couldn't possibly... No, it's in many cases very obvious why it was bad. Just common sense, really. Something that WWE seemed to have kind of thrown out the window over the past 12 months. Right, let's dive in. I've done a few of those, like, video essay chapter title kind of things. I threw them in very last minute. They're not very good. Sorry about that. Here we go. Part 1. It actually started off quite well, didn't it? I think the build to the Royal Rumble, with Cena as one of the major favourites heading in and this sense of desperation to get this title match at WrestleMania and hopefully break the record number of world title reigns, was a very compelling setup. So the Rumble comes around and, again, very nice bit of booking here. Cena almost wins the match. He finishes second after being last eliminated by Jey Uso after a very thrilling final two. I'm not even particularly like a huge fan of Jey Uso or anything, but I loved this win for him in the Royal Rumble. It felt legitimately surprising. I'm not suggesting that Jey wasn't at least like, a semi-main eventer at the time, but he wasn't one of the major favourites going in. He wasn't John Cena, he wasn't CM Punk. And to have him win, I think is one of the boldest and maybe one of the best Rumble booking decisions in modern history. And a lot of this was made even more thrilling, of course, by the unique circumstances heading in and the fact that Cena was so desperate, and we were so desperate as an audience to see him win the match and get a title shot at WrestleMania. And they subverted our expectations, WWE did, but in a good way. It was very effective. So far, so good. Then came the next step on the road to WrestleMania, Elimination Chamber. Oh boy. Right, so as we all know, John Cena, unthinkably, turns heel at the end of this event. I was radically optimistic about everything at this time, I remember. Foolishly optimistic even, foolishly so. So there's 3 parts to this heel turn at Elimination Chamber that I want to mention. First of all, the build. After not winning the Royal Rumble, Cena announces in a press conference that he will just be entering the Elimination Chamber match for a title shot at WrestleMania. He's not going to earn it in any way. It felt quite out of character. It felt very un-Cena, although he did justify it by saying, look, I've given so much to this company over the past 2 decades or more. I think I deserve this. Again, felt a little bit not Cena-esque. It felt strange. It felt a little bit strange, but in hindsight, I really like this detail because of what we know was to come. If it was planned, I think again it's a stroke of kind of booking genius, really, isn't it? We've started off really positively. It'll go downhill soon. The chamber match itself rolls around, and I enjoyed it too, especially the sequences between Cena and one of his greatest rivals, one of the wrestlers he has shared the very best chemistry with over the course of his entire career, CM Punk. And the ending of the match is really good as well, with Seth Rollins attacking Punk despite already being eliminated because those two were feuding very intensely at the time, and Cena taking advantage of a downed Punk, his fellow babyface, to choke him out with the STF and win the match. Again, I think this is fantastic. Similar to his self-insertion into the match itself, it's not an act that makes him a heel by itself, but it's an act that a heel would have no qualms doing at all. And then finally, I want to talk about the heel turn itself, of course, maybe the most famous moment in Cena's entire farewell run. At the same event at Elimination Chamber, as we all know, Cody Rhodes is being tempted into turning heel and joining The Rock as his unscrupulous corporate champion. Boo! Cody predictably says no, and The Rock reveals his quite insane backup plan, signaling to Cena, who's still in the ring in the aftermath of the Elimination Chamber match, and Cena executes what is perhaps one of the most seismic heel turns in the entire history of wrestling. Now suddenly this reframed our whole conversation as fans with regards to Cena's farewell run, because until this point, we were looking at it in terms of possible achievements. Is he gonna win that 17th world title? Which opponents is he gonna face? Which legendary rivals from his career will he face off against one last time? But now all of a sudden, it's like it's a double whammy. Because we're getting all of that stuff still that we were considering before the heel turn, but now we are getting the thing that internet wrestling fans have been screaming for or theorizing about for 20 years, a John Cena heel turn. That is, in hindsight, massively ambitious. That's like too much to cram in, but it didn't maybe seem that way at the time because we were all blinded by what an exciting moment this was. Now, some reports since, of course, have claimed that The Rock actually wanted Cody to turn heel and join him on the road to WrestleMania, and allegedly Cody said no. Cena kind of stuck his hand up and went, I'll do it. He was kind of the backup plan, and they went with it. Now, that kind of sounds like a lack of long-term planning, which might explain, if that is indeed the situation, which might explain the kind of rushed, underprepared booking, that sense of not quite knowing our next step that we're going to see from WWE for kind of the remainder of this video. But I was so positive still around this time. I thought this is huge, this is so exciting, this is so historic. And even the facial expression that Cena pulled just before attacking Cody made me think, oh, this is going to be something quite monstrous and quite disturbing and difficult to watch, but in such a compelling way. It wasn't. Okay, but even at this point, even at Elimination Chamber itself, there were a few little warning signs. Firstly, like I mentioned, it felt like quite a lot to cram in to a farewell run. Secondly, it risked overshadowing Cody Rhodes completely, who just 1 year prior had been positioned as kind of the next John Cena. And thirdly, why is Travis Scott there? What's Travis Scott got to do with this? What? In between Elimination Chamber and WrestleMania, we saw our first example of John Cena cutting a heel promo in the modern age. And this is where some people started to say, uh-oh. I remember the first person who kind of expressed skepticism to me about this storyline was my good friend Alex, who works as a videographer for North Wrestling up here in Newcastle. And I say that to demonstrate that he knows ball, not just wrestling ball, but he knows storytelling ball as well. Alex saw that first John Cena promo and voice noted me very eloquently expressing that this isn't going to work out, Jack. This isn't going to be good. And foolishly, I was still very much on board. I was wrong. So I mean, there's a lot of problems with John Cena's heel promos, but I think the overall theme is that they showed us that this heel turn just wasn't going to be radical enough. Cena has talked in the past about what he would do if he ever turned heel, and he's talked about how he would do everything that John Cena typically wouldn't do. He would give up sometimes, he wouldn't pander to the crowd, he would be cowardly and lazy. He would subvert what it is to be John Cena. And what we saw with these heel promo segments was not that, unfortunately. It was Cena just being a heel, and we were supposed to collectively say as an audience, wow, look, John Cena, who's not normally a heel, but he's saying and doing heelish things. But the things Cena was saying didn't appear to be tailored to him. They seemed far more generic. They did not seem to follow that blueprint that he himself had set out in previous interviews, theoretically talking about one day if I ever turned heel. Well, now you're a heel, John, but you're doing all the generic things. He's blaming the fans, he's shouting and ranting and raving, and he's basically doing a you people promo. He also talked about ruining wrestling because he's the greatest of all time and nobody deserves to take that belt from him, which was slightly different, but basically is just a variation on heelish things we've seen countless times before. It really, really didn't bode well. And then we got to WrestleMania. Like it, dum, 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 dum. Rock the Trav bar, rock the... So here we are, the main event of WrestleMania 41, Night 2. WWE Champion Cody Rhodes defending against John Cena. Several problems here. First of all, the match quality. It's not the biggest problem about everything, but it just wasn't that great a match. I get that age catches up with everybody, and Cena could not be expected to put on the kind of epic encounter we may have expected from him in his prime. But apart from that, it just kind of seemed like it lacked intensity. Or at least certainly not the level of intensity you'd expect from the main event of WrestleMania. Anyway, all the build in the match happened, and then the fireworks began, and everything rapidly went further downhill. Travis Scott. Why is Travis Scott in the storyline? Travis Scott comes out to the ring very slowly. They really wanted us to think this was a big deal. He tries to screw Cody. Cody overcomes it, attacks Travis Scott. And now, well, obviously now we're all waiting for The Rock, because whenever Travis Scott has shown up, well, it's been in conjunction with Dwayne. And then nothing happens. The match moves into its final stretch, and it becomes rapidly apparent that The Rock, after hijacking the road to WrestleMania for the second year in a row, has decided, actually, I don't want any part of this storyline. The big twist, therefore, was Travis Scott, and that's it. Cena wins after cheating, something Cody himself was unable to do with the referee's back turned mere moments before. And yes, I do think it was the right call to have Cena win and have him break this record. I certainly don't think having Cody deny him this would have done Cody any favours as a babyface in the eyes of the fans. But at the same time, why did they make Cody Rhodes look like such an idiot in defeat? If Cody had low-blowed Cena or used the belt to attack him, things that Cena did to Cody, that would have been fighting fire with fire, I think, in the eyes of the fans. I'm sure most people would agree with that, because Cena has betrayed him and attacked him over the build to WrestleMania, and then in this match itself, Cena's already cheated multiple times in the match. And if Cody did that back to him, well, I think that's fair game. But for Cody not to do that is to make himself look weak. Can you imagine Stone Cold Steve Austin trying to be so virtuous? No. And maybe some baby faces, it kind of fits their character to not cheat in such a way and to be morally superior. But I think that only works if they then go on to win, which obviously Cody did not. And finally, the last problem I want to mention with the WrestleMania main event itself is the tone of Cena's win after the bell, which absolutely does not gel with the story WWE themselves were trying to tell with this heel turn. A big part of Cena's promos in the build to this WrestleMania was this evil master plan of his, that he would win the WWE Championship, break the record, defend it until the end of 2025, and then retire and take that belt away with him forever. All of that belt's history, dating all the way back to Buddy Rogers in the mid-20th century, all of that would leave with John Cena forever. And at the time, that was one element of the heel promos that I still really liked. That was one thing that kept me kind of on board with the storyline prior to WrestleMania, of course. I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was going to be a very unique storyline in the current WWE landscape. I thought, wow, this is going to be like the original Summer of Punk in Ring of Honor, when Punk was going to take that belt to WWE and kind of take away the crown jewel of the independent scene. It was kind of going to be a little bit like that. And in that storyline, in Ring of Honor, we got increasingly desperate attempts from babyfaces to try and win this belt from Punk before he left the promotion. And I thought throughout 2025, we were going to get increasingly desperate attempts from WWE's babyfaces to beat Cena for the title and kind of preserve WWE's history, really. And there were so many candidates that it would have made sense if that's how the storyline had panned out. CM Punk himself could have done that. Imagine how thematically ironic that would have been in a great way. It could have been somebody like Sami Zayn, who's never won a world title, and then has to step up and do it under the most pressure imaginable. But those are just two examples. There's various that it could have been. But when Cena won his record-breaking 17th world title at WrestleMania, WWE didn't really emphasize this part at all. They very much centered it all around celebrating this achievement, and the announce team backed this up. They kind of didn't even act like he'd really cheated in the match, or certainly not like it was a particularly bad thing. I remember the announce team being like, well, you don't have to like him, but by God, you have to respect what John Cena has done. And I'm like, no, I don't. Can you imagine at the end of like WrestleMania 17, where Steve Austin has unthinkably aligned with Vince McMahon to betray The Rock? And then can you imagine Jim Ross being like, well, I guess that's just the way it goes sometimes. No, absolutely not. It's not like this is a new problem as well, because I think this was quite an issue that crept into Roman Reigns' mammoth, long heel run at the top, especially during its final year, where it felt like every single pay-per-view would end with Roman cheating to win or benefiting from interference, and then you'd have Michael Cole signing off by saying he's done it again, the tribal chief, he really is one of the greatest of all time, and you have to respect him. No, I don't have to respect him. What happened to faces and heels, Michael? This isn't real life. This isn't like Tom Brady winning another Super Bowl, and you have to begrudgingly go, God damn it, he's won another one. No, this is wrestling. You can write whatever you want, and the fans do not have to respect anything. Anyway, Cena emerged from WrestleMania as the champion, and this is where I fell off. This is when I stopped supporting the booking. Not because of the fact that he won the belt, but more like very much the way it happened. So yeah, that all happened. It was a bad main event of WrestleMania, which will be remembered as a very bad one. Cody now looks like an idiot, but at least we can now move forwards and see what's going to happen next. But then things just kind of got lazy. Booking Cena is a mystery. Oh God. I didn't mind the choice of opponent for Cena's first title defense, Randy Orton at Backlash. One of Cena's most historic rivals. They'd clashed numerous times, but now the dynamic was a bit more fresh, with Orton being the babyface for once against heel Cena. The match had a lot of hype heading in. There was that great ambush on Cena from Orton on TV to kick off the whole feud. It was going to be in Orton's hometown, and then Backlash rolls around, and Cena wins after interference from R-Truth. But Cena doesn't align with Truth. He still thinks Truth's an idiot, and Truth hasn't turned heel here. He's just very naively helped Cena because he thinks he's still his role model. Cena attacks Truth and goes on to face him at Saturday night's main event in Tampa, Florida. Aligning, by the way, with Logan Paul as well in the build to this match. More on that later. So, I don't want to say anything unpopular here, because we all love R-Truth. Why is R-Truth such a central character in Cena's farewell run? Cena wins like a 5-minute match in the middle of the card, and this brings us to quite a central theme here in this video. Priorities, or a total lack of them. Like, I love R-Truth, we all love R-Truth, as I mentioned, but Cena has had such a storied career with so many people he could feasibly face and make it a big deal. And, you know, the stuff with R-Truth I think definitely deserved a moment, a nod to that quite humorous history between the two, but like, maybe have a match on a Raw or a SmackDown. This was not the end of it either, it carried on. In the main event of the show in Tampa, Cena interferes in the match to try to help Logan Paul defeat Jey Uso, but he is foiled by a returning Cody Rhodes, which all sets up Cena's next big pay-per-view match, himself and Logan teaming together against Cody and Jey at Money in the Bank. So I find the Logan Paul involvement kind of weird and pointless. At this point, WWE were really hammering home the fact that Cena had a very limited number of dates left, and you'd think they'd really want to maximize that time to squeeze every last thing they could out of Cena's final year in WWE. But instead, we use quite a big chunk of that time to elevate Logan Paul. Listen, I know that Logan Paul has talent as a wrestler, and I know he is very capable of generating a lot of heat, although you could argue about the type of heat that he generates and the effectiveness of it. But did Logan really need this alliance with Cena, and then later on, a feud with Cena as well, with so many other candidates? It's similar to my argument about R-Truth. I mean, yes, I understand that behind the scenes, Logan will have picked up very valuable experience from being in conversation with Cena backstage and everything, but on screen, as part of the product that we consume, what has really changed for Logan Paul because of this time? I can't tell any difference. Anyway, they team together in the match, and Cena and Logan end up arguing in the match. A bit of tension between the two there, interesting. And then, I'm still very bitter about this whole year, can you tell? And then they are cost the match by R-Truth again, who was shockingly and abruptly released from WWE in the aftermath of his singles match against Cena. comes back here, though, under his old kind of unhinged persona, Ron Killings. So there's a real lack of focus to the booking here. Remember, this isn't just Cena's last year. He is also WWE champion at this point. It bears repeating because that should be the centerpiece of your booking plans, around which a lot of other stuff revolves. And instead, it was very meandering. Like, where is our attention meant to be? So what? Cena and Logan are arguing, but they're both heels, remember, at this stage. So yes, it is going to lead to a match down the line, but we weren't to know that at the time. They're arguing, and then suddenly R-Truth's back, also Cody's involved. It's all over the place. And hey, look, I was like most people. I was delighted outside of kayfabe to see R-Truth back in the company because, like many people, I thought that his sudden release was very abrupt and heartless. But in terms of the booking, I don't think that Truth's reinsertion into this Cena feud was a good sign. Again, it seemed very unfocused, no sense of priority from creative, and once again, time is ticking now. Cena's number of dates is ever dwindling. So Cena and Truth have a rematch, well, Ron Killings have a match on an episode of SmackDown, which ends very quickly after a DQ from Cena. And that's kind of just where Truth's involvement, that was it. And really this rematch was just an excuse to set up the real purpose of this segment, which was the John Cena pipe bomb promo. So Cena gets on the mic, and I mean, obviously he's very charismatic and eloquent. There's a reason he is a global star, not just in wrestling, but outside of it too. And that means that there was really quite a high floor as to how badly this could have gone. Cena cuts a promo on CM Punk, who rushed down to the ring in the aftermath of the match against R-Truth. And he hits Punk with the belt, and he puts him through a table, gets on the mic, and then cuts a promo on a downed CM Punk. And lifts big phrases and a lot of energy as well from Punk's famous 2011 pipe bomb promo. Here's the problem. Beyond trying to emulate one of the greatest promos in wrestling history. But here's the other problem. Punk's promo back in 2011 wasn't just about building to himself versus Cena at Money in the Bank. It took on this whole other form as well. Like, it definitely worked on that level as the build to a match, but it's remembered not just for that, but for other things as well. Punk was saying things in that promo that had only ever been talked about on message boards and fan forums by the internet hardcore fans. Things that we never dreamed of seeing on WWE television. He spoke about the direction of the industry as a whole. He spoke about the stagnation over the past 10 years under this monopoly that WWE had created for themselves. He talked about Vince McMahon's failings. And Cena was the person that Punk was talking to, but Cena just represented like the golden boy, the tip of the iceberg of this whole system that Punk was really taking aim at. Punk's promo was directed at John Cena, but encapsulated so much other stuff. Cena's promo used so much other stuff, but was really only directed at CM Punk. And it wasn't really groundbreaking enough. Cena didn't say anything to Punk that hasn't been said already on screen in the past. He's a hypocrite, he's selfish, he lies to the fans, he's not as good as he thinks he is. But in fairness, the lines were delivered in an entertaining way because John Cena is such a charismatic force of nature, so I will give him that. In fact, this is a good time to stress, I should probably say, the vast majority of the problems that I mention in this video aren't problems I have with Cena himself or his ability. They're problems with WWE's directing of him. It's WWE creative. So now we get to Night of Champions in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. John Cena defending the belt this time against CM Punk. Again, multiple problems with this one, none of which really have anything to do with the match itself, which was pretty good. Not like a blow-away match or anything, but Cena and Punk have always had incredibly good chemistry. Anyway, problem number one, the fact that this match was part of WWE's ongoing relationship with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is a whole other topic and whatever, but you know, it's bad. Far more eloquent people have explained why it's bad out there, and I agree. Problem number two, the way this match finished, which was a crazy amount of run-ins, and then Seth Rollins almost cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase, thereby costing CM Punk the match, and Cena retains. But it's really all about Punk versus Seth. And moreover, my big problem is that, basically, I don't like the fact that the final showdown between John Cena and CM Punk was relegated to a stepping stone in the ongoing feud between Punk and Rollins. In a similar way to Randy Orton, CM Punk is one of the few still active wrestlers in WWE who could have made a thematically relevant, very exciting, very emotional final opponent for John Cena, and instead, this is the match they gave him. It's a waste. And you may once or twice. Boom. Is it too late now? And then, out of nowhere, Cena turns face again in time to face Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. I mean, the turn doesn't feel earned in the slightest, but then at the same time, you kind of have to just say, well, it is the lesser of two evils. So yeah, on one hand, I'm hesitant to fully criticize this babyface turn because it would have probably been absolute madness to just carry on down this path they were going with heel Cena. But at the same time, at least give us something of substance, something with dramatic flair. But instead the story is that Cody's just such a babyface that he turned Cena face as well with his words. Like, Cena was threatening not even to turn up to defend the belt at SummerSlam because of prior commitments elsewhere. And then Cody rolled a natural 20 on his charisma check and Cena was a good guy again. On the plus side, the match at SummerSlam is good. Like, astonishingly good, actually. Cena put in a huge effort here and wrestled at a level that I don't think anybody thought he could still go at. Clearly, he can't go at it all the time. That would be crazy, especially at his age. But he really went for it in this one, and we can definitely applaud his effort. Cody did a great job as well. Cena put in maybe his best performance since, like, 2017, you could even argue. This match made me feel bad for Austin Theory. Okay, so the finishing stretch of Cena versus Cody was maybe a little bit too much. You could argue that Cody maybe survived way too much punishment, kicked out of way too much. But on the whole, I think it's the best match of Cena's retirement run comfortably. Best singles match. I really enjoyed the chamber match, but that wasn't just Cena. And hey, you can argue as well that Cody looked a bit too indestructible, but I would absolutely take that every single day over how weak and pathetic a babyface he looked at the end of WrestleMania. After the match, which Cody wins, winning but saving the WWE Championship, although those stakes meant nothing anymore because Cena returned face anyway, so presumably he wasn't going to take away the belt and all its legacy like he said he would anyway, but it doesn't even matter. But at the end of all of that, Cena is attacked by Brock Lesnar. Now, like the Saudi deal, Lesnar's involvement is a whole different kettle of fish that deserves more dedicated time and a dedicated video on. But it does leave a sour taste in the mouth, and it's worth mentioning that. But I'll try and keep my disdain here directed at the on-screen product. And so this match is set up for WrestlePalooza. But that's not yet, that's a little way down the line. First, we need to circle back, because now John's a babyface, to Cena versus Logan Paul. The pair meet at Clash in Paris. It's a pretty good match. Like most big Logan Paul matches, you have to sort of go, that was a well-worked match. But I just don't know if it really made me feel anything. There was also a lot of finisher spam going on, which is maybe a bit of a sign of things to come for the remainder of the year for John. Cena wins, as he should, defeats Logan Paul in France, and then rolls into SmackDown to have a match against Sami Zayn. Now, I really I remember watching this live and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So it was very cleverly done where Sami, at this point the United States champion, offers Cena a match, says, hey, you used to do that open challenge thing about 10 years ago, and I was one of the kind of the rookies that you gave a shot to. Well, look at me now, and I'm giving a shot, I'm returning the favor, I'm giving it back to you. I thought, oh, that's really good. And then the match itself was really excellent as well. A great performance by Sami. Cena not pulling out all the stops like he did against Cody at SummerSlam, but like wrestling an intense TV match, which was very exciting, could have gone either way. I was really enjoying it. And then the match was ruined. This is a bit of an aside, but remember my friend Alex I talked about, the videographer? One thing that he cannot stand is the sheer amount of non-finishers in TV matches in WWE these days. And now that he's pointed it out to me, you can't unsee it. The match is ruined by a run-in from Brock Lesnar to further build to that match at WrestlePalooza against Cena. And I remember at the time really being very angry about this and complaining online. And people would reply, not everybody, but some people's kind of comeback to that was, well, it was a match where you couldn't really have either guy win, you know? You needed a non-finish. No, you didn't. I think absolutely you could have given Cena the win here and then had Sami take the belt back from him in a rematch down the line, thereby, you know, providing us with an exciting title change and then boosting Sami with a big win over Cena. They literally have done that now with Dominic Mysterio and the IC title. Or if you don't want Sami losing, have Cena lose. It's a bit more of a risky one, I'll admit that. But really, who up until this point had actually been boosted by Cena in his retirement run, apart from Jey Uso at the Rumble and Cody at SummerSlam? Although I would very strongly argue that Cody's whole interactions with Cena over the course of 2025 were a massive net negative for the American Nightmare. Now I know people will argue, hey, Lesnar's run-in, right, that's fine, because this was just a TV match, and Lesnar's involvement is building further heat for that bout at WrestlePalooza, which is a PLE. So let's see how that match went. This is like the most baffling part of Cena's retirement run, perhaps. A lot of the other stuff I've talked about is bad, but you can see how it came to be. This was just out of nowhere, and the most pointless thing ever. Lesnar dominates Cena in the match, suplex, F5, F5, pins him, 1, 2, 3. What? I know that they did this at SummerSlam 2014 between Cena and Lesnar again, and Lesnar squashed Cena then. Don't you pretend to me that the context is exactly the same. That was 11 years ago. Lesnar was coming off the back of beating The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania, and it was like a seismic power shift at the top of the card. It was Cena being treated like we'd never seen him treated before. This one, in 2025, just didn't need to happen. I was willing to overlook it if it went anywhere afterwards, and it just didn't. What's the follow-up been? Why did we feed Cena to Lesnar? Because it makes every single other person that Cena beats or runs close even in a match look weaker by comparison. I cannot explain. Like, the worst part was the main event of WrestleMania and how that was like the worst part in a beautiful disaster sort of way. This was the worst part pound for pound. The WrestleMania one had more bearing and was more memorable and was more of a bad look for WWE. But this one was like pointless and I can't form thoughts. Next up, AJ Styles versus John Cena at Crown Jewel in Australia. This might not be the most popular opinion. I didn't really like this match as much as everybody else seemed to. Basically, if you haven't seen it, both men hit a lot of different finishes, not only their own and each other's finishing moves, but the finishing moves of various Cena rivals of the past. Now, to be fair, it was a very fun match. I can't deny that. It was fun. And the tribute to Bray Wyatt was a appropriate and very touching moment, and I definitely wouldn't take that out of the match. But that aside, it just felt like a big exhibition, didn't it? Like, people would, am I going mad? People were talking about this like it was a match of the year contender or something, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. Maybe I'm just a snob. Maybe I'm just a hippie hipster, and I don't know how to have fun. And that is true. I think also I would have enjoyed this match more if the rest of Cena's final run had been handled better. So if it weren't for all the other things we've talked about in this video, then maybe this would have felt like a nice break in between more intense, meaningful feuds, and it's just two baby faces going out there and just having a vibes match. But instead, I struggled to enjoy it because of everything else as well. Back to the positive stuff. I liked Cena beating Dominic Mysterio for the IC title on Raw. Yes. Don't really have anything else to say about that one. It was nice to give Cena that IC belt and complete the set. Can we turn Dom face already though? Has that ship sailed? It feels like it's done several voyages by now. We also had the final Raw match of Cena's career, a big fun house showy 6-man. Maybe I wouldn't have had Sheamus involved, but that's a minor criticism. Just because Sheamus desperately wants to win that IC title as well, and at this point Cena was IC champion, Sheamus wasn't injured. It looked, in my mind anyway, like they were building to something, and we'll never really know. We had the rematch with Dom where Cena dropped the IC title back to him at Survivor Series War Games in San Diego, Dom's hometown of course, so I can't be too mad about that. It was a sports entertainment match. There were run-ins. Liv Morgan made her return and cost Cena the match. I think it's fine. Ideally, I would have liked Cena to have won. Maybe Ray gets involved and costs Dom to really pop the San Diego crowd. But I think that had Cena won, then that would only have worked if Sheamus had still been active. I'm really sad that Sheamus missed out on what could have been a fantastic IC title victory. And so finally we get to Cena's last ever opponent, decided by a tournament, which Sheamus should have won if in a perfect world. It's nobody's fault. But it turns out that Cena's final opponent is going to be the ring general, Gunther. I would have liked this match to have been against an old foe, perhaps, as I mentioned, someone like Orton, someone like CM Punk. But of course, those matches ended, respectively, with interference from R-Truth and interference from Seth Rollins. So the best alternative, I guess, is to elevate a modern-day star by having him, hopefully, defeat Cena and put a full stop on his career. And Gunther really fits the bill. I think that's fair enough, especially after that promo we saw this week on Raw. Yeah, Gunther should do it. Please, please win, Gunther. And in that promo, Gunther mentioned that he's going to make Cena give up, because of course John Cena never gives up. And I think what we need then is for Cena not to tap out when caught in a sleeper or whatever, but to pass out. Because I know that, you know, people are saying, well, if he taps out, that brings a nice end to it. That's the end. He's finally given up. No, I don't want my John Cena to give up. I want him to go down swinging, damn it. But I can see the merits of either decision. I struggle more to see the merits of a Cena win. Like, I would kind of get it. I would kind of get it because look at Undertaker, look at Sting, for example. It's not as much of a hard and fast rule anymore that wrestlers have to lose their final match before retirement. But at the same time, Taker's was that cinematic Boneyard match. Sting's was that tag match against the Young Bucks. They were elevated because Undertaker and Sting won those matches. Whereas I think if Cena wins this one, I think that has a negative impact on Gunther. Quite massively, actually. And if Gunther does win, by the way, I really hope that WWE realise that the job is only half done. You can't just have someone beat a retiring legend and go, look, they beat look at Baron Corbin when he retired Kurt Angle, you know? Anyway, last bit. Whoa. WWE's handling of Cena's retirement run has been a huge disaster and a huge shame. But a lot of people might argue, and correctly as well, by the way, hey Jack, how much impact will this actually have on Cena's overall legacy? And you'd be right to say that, because John Cena has had such a long and monumental career that yes, 2025 has been a bad ending to it, and that will sometimes be talked about, but it won't overshadow in any way the amazing legacy of John Cena. But I think this terrible run is still relevant because it's indicative of a wider issue, the state of WWE today. WWE is a place very much designed to keep a cap on its wrestlers. No one superstar is allowed to be bigger than the brand itself. And their treatment of Cena's final run has really hammered that home, hasn't it? John Cena is one of, you could probably count the number of people that have transcended wrestling on one hand. And if that's the case, Cena is absolutely one of them. And despite that, he has still fallen victim to short-sighted booking and misguided creative. And if that's the case for John Cena, what hope does anybody else have? Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack the Jobber. If you want to support the channel, check out my Patreon, where I do pay-per-view review podcasts and predictions games and all kinds of stuff on there. And leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments section down below. If you've enjoyed the video, smash that like button, please. Share and subscribe and all that sort of stuff. And thank you for watching. I'll see you very soon.